Hi there, how are you? Welcome to the Digital Culture Ideas Show. This is the show where we discuss how technology and the internet will significantly shape the way people interact, behave, think, and communicate. In short, this is a show about technology and people. On today's show, I welcome Stella Ward, who is the Chief Digital Officer at the Canterbury District Health Board. She implements the digital strategy and leads Information Services Group. She provides strategic leadership to the business to ensure that the current and future technology contributes to an integrated health system, one that really works. She is also the executive lead for Via Innovations, and we'll talk about that on the show. She also holds the Christchurch Health Precinct executive portfolio, and she's a trained speech and language therapist. She's also worked in allied health leadership roles, including Canterbury DHB Executive Director of Allied Health and President of the New Zealand Speech and Language Therapists Association. She has held executive management positions in several DHBs and also has worked in the public health system, private practice, education, and welfare. I get to chat to Stella about her leadership journey from clinician through to Chief Digital Officer. I also talk to her about digital transformation in the health sector, and in particular, leading innovation, which is a real passion interest for Stella, but also an area that she has very much been fostering within the health industry. And interestingly, a lot of this has really been led from Canterbury, from Christchurch, which was my hometown. And another shout out for Canterbury, the experiences that we have experienced in Christchurch with the Christchurch earthquakes in terms of recovering from those and regenerating the city could be the experiences that provide a real sweet spot for helping New Zealand through its economic recovery. And so I really just want to bring Stella on so that you can have a chat with her. Stella, how are you?
I'm well, thank you, Hilary. Nice to talk to you.
Nice to talk to you as well. So this is actually the first time we've officially met. We've swapped emails and we had full intentions of meeting in person. But then sort of life happened. But it's so nice to be able to have this time with you now to have a chat with you.
Thank you.
And I have to admit, like Stella, I've known about you for a long time, and I've certainly sort of been in awe of you as a senior female in digital and doing what you're doing with the CDHB. So I really just wanted to ask you a few questions and pick your brain on a few things. But to start with, I'm really interested. What was your leadership journey to where you are now?
Oh wow, mine's a really a different journey. So I mean, I was the standard process at high school in terms of I was a senior leader in one of the class captains, etc.
Oh, yes,
and then so had a bit of experience at school, and then once I qualified as a speech language therapist. And did that for a good while. And so probably my first real leadership position was as the president of the Speech Language Therapists Association. That exposed me to international connections and relationships, as well as leading the profession in terms of ethics and standards and development, which was wonderful, really great experience. I was in private practice as a speech language therapist and wanted to get more involved in changing the way the environments worked for people that I was supporting in terms of supervision and as a president. So started out as the professional leader of speech language therapy at Counters Manukau. Then worked to establish the director of allied health role there, which is the first time I've led beyond my discipline. And so that meant leading other professionals in the allied health technical and scientific space. Then came to Canterbury and established the role as the Executive Director of Allied Health for West Coast and Canterbury, and also started to build out a portfolio. So David, as our Chief Executive, encourages the exec to take on additional portfolios alongside their role. And so that's where I got exposed to innovation and the leadership of the innovation space, as well as being part of the health precinct and Papahoora Council, and connecting more with sort of that broader recovery activity. I was also the incident controller for vulnerable people in the emergency response to the earthquakes, which was the first time we just established that. But tech has been around me for a really long time. So as a speech language therapist, we train to use technology to support people who have communication disorders to get an outcome. And so I've always thought of technology as an important component to deliver the outcomes that I was looking to do. And so I started off with having the CIO report into me, and then we needed to do and so that got me exposed to broader tech activity at a strategic level. And then we did a review and a restructure and a reorganisation of our information services group, and I took on the role of Chief Digital Officer and gave up being a clinician. And so I've been Chief Digital Officer for Canterbury for a while, 3 years in October, and being part of leading the strategic and operation responsibilities for CDHB.
Wow. And so what is it like to be sort of lead digital in the health industry in particular?
Well, health is the last industry to the party when it comes to digital, and so it's really exciting. And I have had the privilege of connecting with people outside of health to understand how digital has supported their business or their organisational transformation or their customer experience or their marketing platform. And so bringing all of that kind of digital thinking into healthcare has been wonderful leadership challenge and a great leadership opportunity.
Because tech and digital really does enable health, but quite an interesting industry because there's always that trade-off with the health outcomes and the tech outcomes and the clinicians versus non-clinicians. And I guess a big advantage for you is the fact that you have that speech and language therapy background, so you very much understand what the clinical kind of view is as well in terms of what they're trying to achieve.
Yes, and I think it's actually fundamental for leaders in the digital space to truly understand the industry they're working in and not think about it as a technology play, but think about it as the point of view of what business outcomes are you supporting. And so you really need to be connected to the strategy. And so it is helpful that I come from a clinical background to understand why when we give people the technology, it has to be easy to use, it has to flow in their workflow, and it has to be something that helps their job be easier to do rather than in the way.
Absolutely. That is really important. And so it sounds like your kind of career history and background has a real strong leadership flavour. So have you got any advice that you would give other sort of aspiring women leaders wanting to get into technology roles or just kind of leadership roles in general?
I think it's important so from my perspective, it's also always about, for me, helping other women up. And so I certainly look at the women leaders or the women around me and how can I support them to have opportunities. My advice is, you're never ready, and if someone gives you an opportunity, take it with both hands. And you know what? You won't have all the things in your basket to do the job, but you'll have enough because someone has trusted you to take that opportunity, and then you go and get the support you need to fill your basket to deliver. So that would be my advice. To trust that you can lead, to acknowledge that people who see that in you will follow you, because the reality is you're only a good leader if people connect with the vision you're selling, communicating, and they want to follow you.
Yeah, that's very true. And that's been completely my experience as well. Even if you think you're only, 60% the way there, the fact that someone has chosen you and believes that you can do it, you should also trust yourself. That's completely true. And then the other thing you said around helping other women up, I heard a really good kind of phrase. I was watching an interview that Jacinda Ardern was doing, and she was doing it with this other lady, and they talked about Jacinda said, there's those women who will jam their foot in the door and drag as many other women through as possible. And then there's those women who will kind of let the door close and make sure you're the first type and not the second type, because I think that is so important.
Agreed. And I went to a presentation someone said about building an elevator, and you want to be a woman that is building an elevator that takes people to the top and beyond you as fast as possible. You do not want to be concreting the floor below you.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah, exactly. Pushing them even higher. That's so true. So I don't know if you're aware, but I sort of have a kind of a health background in the fact that my dad was actually a general practitioner for a number of years before he retired. My husband, his family has kind of a medical family background. His father was a surgeon. And I actually worked as a receptionist in the 24-hour surgery during university. Like, that was my kind of job to get me through university. So I sort of have had some exposure through my family experience, and then working as a receptionist, and what that kind of industry looks like. And if I think back to when my dad was working in particular, there was sort of rooms full of files, all filed alphabetically, completely kind of paper based. There was some tools that were in place, but they weren't really connected to other surgeries or other, medical departments in the ecosystem that well. And I guess that must be a big challenge for the health industry, that, things are getting better, but there's a bit of journey on the way there. So what role has the CDHB played along that kind of transformation journey?
Well, the CDHB, Canterbury Health System, has played a leadership role. And so we, in 2012, after the earthquakes,
Yes,
it became really, really clear that paper was a problem when it came to sharing information around patients and delivering care. So that was when Health One was created, which is the platform that allows information to be shared about patients across the entire South Island. And it can be accessed by general practice, by pharmacy, by the District Health Board, clinicians, by some of our NGOs such as Laura Ferguson, and so that platform has been an absolute game changer in terms of the ability for information about patients to be shared amongst clinicians, and that has been meant that wherever the maturity scale was in terms of digital, so actually general practice had moved quite a bit from obviously when your dad was in practice, and had quite a lot of digital processes. So their practice management systems and their were IT based, and so the big laggards in this has been the district health boards, and in particular the hospitals.
Okay. Yep.
And so we've needed to obviously create a platform to allow the collaboration and the sharing of information, which patients thought we were already doing. And then we've also had to invest in the capability of the systems inside the hospital. So we've got new patient administration systems, we've got new clinical information systems, we've got bespoke apps that sit on a platform. We've got new finance systems, which, while they're not clinical, they're really important. And we've also got new people management systems as well, just to bring us up. So Canterbury, I'm really pleased to be the Chief Digital Officer for Canterbury, because we are one of the more advanced health systems in terms of our digital strategy and our digital delivery, which has stood us in good stead in the recent weeks and months.
Oh, absolutely. Everyone's trying to, completely go online, and in often cases remote. And definitely if an organisation has invested in that, then they were definitely in a better position. Is there a reason why Canterbury, apart from the fact that Canterbury is really awesome, because I'm based down here as well, we're so far ahead on that journey? Maybe that's up to you. That's because of
I think so. Well, the relationship. So the Canterbury Health System is an integrated health system, and when you're integrated, you have communications and relationships and connections with everybody across the system, other leaders, and so creating an environment where people come together to solve the problem together. And so I think there's some strong visionaries, some passionate leaders, and then there's some enablers or doers like me who go, okay, that's what you want to do, let's do it. And so I think that's why Canterbury does so well in that regard. I think also we've had a board over the last 12, 15 years that have invested in the same strategy and vision in terms of patients at the centre of everything we do, clear accountability for primary care being a robust and strong support for the patients and the community, and then that the specialty services will be freed up and supported to deliver the best specialty care in the most timely way. And so I think that helps that we haven't had that constantly changing. We've had that as a vision and a direction, and then the tech is the enabler that just slides underneath that.
Yeah, and often that is the real key, isn't it, to transformations actually going well, that people understand what they're transforming into. And so has that been that vision, that kind of interconnectedness? I have seen a really cool schematic of the health system and how that fits together. It's really, really great. It's very pictorial and very much shows how the bigger bits are connected to the little bits and things like that. I just, is that been the vision for and perhaps why things have been successful? Yeah.
Yeah, and then we've expanded that to the South Island. So when we talk about Health One, it started in Canterbury and was delivered, and everyone went, I want that, and so we delivered it across the South Island, and that's how that innovation and adoption spreads. When you give people a solution that helps them to do their job, then people want it and adopt it.
Yes. Oh, brilliant. And led from Canterbury too. That's fantastic. Often one of the key ingredients as well is that you've got the people on the journey and that the culture is kind of heading in the right direction as well. What impact has the culture been on the work that you've been doing?
Significant. So again, it's about being clear about the vision and clear about the messages and clear about the way you involve people. So it's been very much a strong engagement model with clinicians, with patients, with other providers when we're tackling a problem together. So we bring people together, we highlight what the issues are, and then we listen to all the different inputs. And out of that comes a plan that then people go ahead and execute. And so if you've been involved in the design of something, then you're more likely to adopt it. And yes, there's challenges like everywhere. There are barriers, there are laggards, there are, I don't want to do it that way. They all exist. But if the majority of people are clear about, I came together as part of designing the solution, I can see it's going to have an outcome either for me or for the system or for the patient, and so people come on board. And probably the big thing in my leadership role with Information Services Group has to be to remind the tech people that they are here to deliver a service to enable the business to do what it is that they do. They are not here to design the tech and say, you need this and this is how you use it. So the same process has happened here, is getting my people to understand who they are, where we're going, and how they need to change to be very much, how can I help, rather than computer says no.
Yes, yeah. From hearing you talk, you sound very much like, that, senior level in your organisation, that whole piece is seen as part of the business rather than something that's kind of tech-led.
Yeah.
Has that always been that way, or how did it get to the point where you've got people from a business perspective, as a business strategy, on that journey, rather than, because often it sort of comes from the IT department pushing up and saying, oh, come on, organisation.
It's kind of evolved, but I mean, our chief executive is very data-driven, quite tech interested and sees the importance of investing in tech. I'm really lucky I have a CFO who also believes that if you can demonstrate the benefit, then so I have an executive group of colleagues who believe in using the technology to deliver better outcomes, and it's happened over time. So the CIO used to report into, corporate services, and that is the traditional way. And when the CIO reported into the executive clinical leads, first of all, CMO, and then me as the executive director of allied health, the clinical voice got amplified in terms of we're in the business of delivering healthcare, so therefore we need to have digital systems that are in the business of delivering and supporting healthcare, digital healthcare. And so that means that a multi-year investment plan has had that voice amplified. And then I guess for me, having the ability to kind of step out of being an executive clinical lead to being now the chief digital officer responsible for both strategy and execution, it's meant that I now also partner with the finance, the CFO around the finance systems, and the chief people officer about the future of work and the people systems, and in the GM planning and funding and decision support about the use of data and the analytics, and so as a team, I kind of am the enabler of all of their portfolios. Yeah,
absolutely. And that's often one of the great things I think about being a CDO or in the type of role you're in, is you get to learn about everyone else's business and how it works so that you can kind of help them. Sorry, that's the curious psychologist in me. I'm like, oh, it's so interesting learning about other parts of the business.
I get what you mean. I when people say what's one quality you describe about you, I say I'm curious. I'm always
absolutely.
Yeah.
And speaking of your curiosity, so I know that an area you're super passionate about is innovation, and I was really interested reading up about this prior to having this chat with you, because you're one of the main proponents behind Via Innovations, if I'm saying that right, and that's a CDHB supported group, and it's aiming to improve the health of people in the regional community. But you're also on the board of New Zealand Health Innovation Hub. And can you tell me a bit about that work, and has it helped to kind of nurture that culture of innovation in the CDHB? Because it's quite an interesting business model for innovation.
Yeah. So yes, I'm very passionate about it, and have been in the realms of how does health innovation get amplified for a decade. So I'm really excited about it. So look. The New Zealand Health Innovation Hub was established 10 years ago, and when it was established, I was part of that group. I pitched that in order for there to be successful commercial outcomes, we would need a business unit that amplified and supported the innovation, both from the point of view of how do we nurture people with good ideas to a point where they might be able to commercialise them or at least deploy them. And then the other was how do we partner with industry? So how do we have an opportunity to connect with the startups, connect with the big players around who often look for innovation partners, but they find it difficult to do. So Via Innovations has been about supporting internal, clinician-led innovation, and there's a clinical director of innovation and there's a innovation director who's more commercialisation advice. And then we partner with others. So we've worked with startups to build out a fantastic platform supporting the interdisciplinary team called Cortex, which is an application that's all on mobile devices that is used in the Christchurch Hospital to manage a team-based care around a patient, and so that's pretty innovative in that space. We've also built out simulation. There's been a bed developed. There's all sorts of things that are in that space in terms of how do we make healthcare better. And then the opportunity to be a director on the New Zealand Health Innovation Hub happened because Canterbury decided to retain it and connect with it. It's all right. So being the New Zealand Health Innovation Hub is about how do we leverage the strategy from both the Ministry of Health in terms of research and innovation strategy, but also MB in terms of how is it that we grow the New Zealand economy, and in particular, what is the opportunity for health tech, which New Zealand has great reputation for tech and health tech. We've had some very successful companies, so how do we amplify that and grow that? And I think in the post-COVID-19 new world that we're all living in, now is the time to get truly excited about medtech and health tech.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And that's it. And then, so you've got your work program, things are going along, and then the pandemic hit. What impact has that had for your work and for the CDHB?
Oh, massive. So the good thing is we had a business continuity plan, and we had some systems in place that we could deploy. So we had recently got the Microsoft Teams, and so we at the point and we had several other digital platforms. So a couple of things for us is significant amount of infrastructure for all that remote working that needed to occur. So ensuring that people had the ability to work from home or work remotely and still contribute. So some people, they didn't necessarily work from home, but they worked from a different environment, so that they weren't connected to what could be a COVID-19 red zone. We described it. We had green zones and red zones.
Okay.
So infrastructure, Teams, remote working, that went from a small group of 100 people using it to 4,000 within a fortnight, and then it just has continued to extend. Obviously, platforms such as video conferencing platforms we already had, mainly because we provide services to the Chathams, telehealth services to the Chathams, and also our relationship with the rest of the South Island and the West Coast. So telehealth, we had the platform there and it just got amplified. Again, Health One, having a single electronic health record that people could view, meant that people had access to the information. And then over the other thing that set us up in good stead was the people platform that we use, which is called ServiceNow. It can do many things, but we used the ServiceNow platform to engage and communicate and update people at work and at home around what's happening at alert level 3, what's happening at alert level 4, what does it mean for me, special leave, and all of that stuff. So, and then, like any of the organisations, we had an emergency response system set up. And so I was the incident controller for the IT side of things. So
right.
Again, it's about focusing on the work, being really clear about what it is that you're going to deliver. So yeah, it's been massive. And now, of course, we need to accelerate and capture all of the gains that have been made and make sure people don't go back to their way to work.
That's so true. I know, like you said, Teams roll out for so many thousand people in 2 weeks. Like it's so impressive how quickly things can happen when they sort of have to happen, and how quickly people can adopt and get used to things. And it's like so much digital transformation has happened. Like you say, how do we keep up that momentum now? How do we kind of keep that going? Have you got any plans for how you might try and kind of keep that going and make sure people don't slip back into old ways, as you said?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm working quite closely with Microsoft to make sure that we ensure that we've got everything really well in place, and that we can continue to evolve the use of the Microsoft Office 365 capabilities that we're licensed for. So spending time with various groups across the organisation around what they want to do. There's a strong clinical group that are really keen to drive the telehealth and remote patient monitoring work. So we'll look to expand that and make sure that what happened at speed, which has got a bit of clunkiness in it, now gets smoothed out and sophisticated and bedded in and improved. So yeah, absolutely in that space. And I'm working through with the executive around future states around policy of flexible working, because we didn't really have a policy for that, and lots of people now can say that we can see that from a productivity perspective, they're able to contribute working from home as much as they were able to contribute being in the office, for those that are non-clinical. And then from a clinical perspective, those that can report remotely because they can get access to all of the securely get access to all of the information, and they could be doing their radiology reports or their lab reports, and not necessarily have to be in an office. So yeah, there's lots of opportunities for us.
Yeah, definitely. And and it's good to see that sort of more hybrid mode coming in as, working from home has become more acceptable. Each organisation will have to find its right balance, and each team will as well, because some people really loved it, and then others are like, oh, I can't wait to get back in the office. And so it's never going to be the same for each team or each person, but there's definitely, a different way to look at things now, which is really helpful.
Yeah, I think the thing is we didn't plan it. We just did it. And so now it's right, well, what did we learn? What went well, what didn't go well? And then how did we plan it? Because it's quite a different way of, achieving something.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, and there's good things about work from home that, and then sort of bad things as well. But that's the same in the office also. So making sure you're taking through the good things on both sides and leaving behind some of the bad stuff and building something new is how I see
absolutely.
it. Yeah. And so, what's next for you, Stella? What's going on?
Well, so I am the Deputy Chair of the National Forum, and so we'll be looking at revising our work plan and how do we look at building out the Ministry's data and digital strategy. So it'd be good to be part of that. I'm continuing with the program of work here, and actually I'm starting to connect more with the local CIOs and CDOs in Christchurch, because I think we have an opportunity for Christchurch to leapfrog like no other city can, because we've got a whole bunch of work we've done as part of responding and recovering from an earthquake. Yes. And so I think Christchurch is really well placed if we can get ourselves organised to lead an economic recovery for New Zealand, particularly in the tech space.
Yeah, I actually really agree with that as well. Recovering from the earthquakes and then rebuilding, we've been doing that for the last, number of years. Yeah. And there certainly are commonalities with rebuilding an economy and getting over this crisis as well. So, yeah, I think it'd be really great to see them coming through. So great that they've got you on that national kind of level as well. That's really exciting. And
and a fabulous local group. I mean, I'm impressed with what's happening at the Ministry of Awesome, Christchurch NZ, yes. University of Otago, Christchurch, University of Canterbury, Lincoln. There's some really cool tech stuff happening, and if we could just harness and come together, we could, deliver amazing things.
Absolutely. Actually, you mentioned kind of meeting up with other Christchurch sort of CIO and I guess digital leaders and things like that. What's the way that you try and connect in with that group?
So there's a Canterbury Tech Cluster. So that's a good group to connect with. I have the privilege of a few people knowing how to get hold of me, so I often turn up to talk to another group.
You're on people's radar, definitely.
And then I'm really lucky. I'm part of a global network, so which is really helpful in terms of how are they doing it elsewhere and how can we bring that here.
Yeah. Oh, excellent. Great. And so, Stella, if people want to get in contact with you or learn more about what you do, where's the best place for them to go look for that information?
Well, I've got a Twitter handle, so you can find me on Twitter. You can.
What's your Twitter handle?
At Stella_DigiHQ.
Cool. Excellent.
Or you can look me up on the Canterbury website. And there's contact details there. So happy to chat to anybody.
Excellent.
Particularly women in tech who are looking for opportunities.
Brilliant. Yeah. Oh, well, thank you so much, Stella. It's been such a pleasure to speak to you today, and I really appreciate you coming on the show. As I said, you've been someone I've been wanting to meet for a long time, and I'm so pleased that we've finally done that, even though it is virtual. We will still have to catch up informally outside of this kind of platform as well. But I just want to really thank you for coming on and for your contribution today. It's been so interesting to hear about.
My pleasure, and thank you, Hilary, for the opportunity, and I'm looking forward to meeting you in person for a cup of tea or coffee.
Perfect. Sounds great.